In the middle of the day, she untied her jewel, grabbed her bag, and faced him. "I'm done, John. I didn't marry you to raise girls who'll bring me nothing." The twins laughed on the mat, not knowing their mother was leaving forever. "Margaret, please, don't do this," he begged. But she walked past him like he was invisible, straight into the arms of another man. And the village whispered, "He's finished." Welcome back. As you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also share with your friends. Now back to the story. The pestle dropped. The yam in the mortar bounced once and rolled onto the dusty floor. John didn't pick it up. He stared at his wife, Margaret, standing in the doorway with a small leather bag pressed to her side like it was something alive. Her jewel sat high, neat and proud. The twins were on the raffia mat near the fire, kicking and cooing in the afternoon heat. "I am leaving, John," Margaret said. Her voice didn't shake. "I will not waste my life on two girls." The words were loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Doors shifted. Faces pushed through bamboo fences. A goat bleated and then went quiet. John's hands were still wet from rinsing the baby's cloth. He wiped them on his wrapper and tried to swallow. "They are your daughters," he said. "They are yours." Margaret looked past him, past the clay pot bubbling on the fire, past the broken stool and the rusted basin, out to the road. A tall man waited under the mango tree. He wore a clean agbada. He didn't look at the house. He looked at his shoes, then at the sky, then back at the road like he was bored of waiting. "You made your choice when you gave me nothing but hunger," Margaret said. "I have made mine." She took a quick breath, turned to the mat, and stared at the twins. The girls smiled, toothless and bright, legs kicking as if they were playing some game only babies know. Margaret's face didn't soften. She bent, not to touch them, but to take the small cowrie bracelet from the corner of the mat, the one her mother gave her on her wedding day. She dropped it into the leather bag, lifted her chin, and walked out. John moved as if the ground had turned to water. "Margaret," he said again, but it came out thin. He followed her to the doorway. He wanted to reach out. He didn't. The tall man under the tree straightened, grinned, and opened his arm for her. She went to him. He tilted his head, pleased, and together they walked toward the main road where the dust always hung in the air like a curtain. The village watched. An old woman selling bean cakes clicked her tongue. Two boys, bare-chested in short wrappers, whispered something and laughed. A man in a faded boo-boo shook his head. No one came close. No one comforted John. They only watched him standing there like a post in the ground. A baby cried. Then the other joined. John turned back. The smell of burning yam pulled him to the fire. He killed the flame with a splash of water and lifted the twins. One on each arm. One face pressed to his chest, the other to his shoulder. Sweat ran down his back. He stood with both girls, swaying a little, whispering into the side of each small head, "It's okay. I am here. I am here." By evening the story had become a song in the village. At the well, women repeated it with many versions. In the palm wine joint, men slapped the table and joked that John had been set free. Children repeated the lines like they were rehearsing a play. "Two girls," one boy said, "and nothing else." Another answered, "Ah, girls are a burden." An older man told him to shut up. The boy didn't. John heard them because words carry in a small place. He heard them while he washed the baby's cloth and hung them near the fire. He heard them while he mashed boiled yam and added a little salt and palm oil. He heard them when he tried to feed the girls with a carved spoon, little by little, tapping each lip until the mouth opened. He heard them when one twin vomited on his wrapper and he cleaned her with the corner of the cloth and kissed her warm forehead. He didn't answer the words. He had no energy to fight talk. Night fell and the moon came up pale. The twins slept in a basket lined with a folded kanga. John sat on the floor with his back to the wall. He looked at the spot where Margaret used to keep her head tie. The small nail in the mud wall looked like an empty eye. He woke before dawn to their crying. He warmed some pap. He tied each baby to his back in turns with ankara cloth, the way he had seen women do. He was clumsy at first. The knot was wrong. The cloth slipped. The baby slid. He panicked, caught her, tried again. By the third time he had found a way that worked. Low and tight, arms tucked in, little head just under his chin. He needed money. He needed help. He needed time. He had only his hands and the fields at the edge of the village and whatever God decided to give. The first person to knock that morning was Musa, the potter. His white beard had turned the color of clay, and his fingers were always stained. He wore a simple wrapper and a faded shirt that had lost all its buttons. He smelled of smoke and wet earth. He stood in the doorway and cleared his throat. "I heard," Musa said. He didn't come inside. He was a man who believed a home is holy, even when it is poor. "I heard she left." John nodded. He didn't want to talk, but it was Musa. The old man had held the twins the day they were born. He had brought them small clay rattles painted with thin zigzags. He had stood in the corner and hummed a soft tune while Margaret slept. Musa's eyes dropped to the twins, now awake and staring. "They have the same eyes," he said. "Like 2 drops of dark water from the same leaf." "Do not start," John said, a bit too sharp. He regretted it at once. He rubbed his forehead. "Sorry. My head is hot." Musa looked at him for a long time. "You remember what I told you when they came?" he said. "I remember." John didn't want to say it out loud. He almost felt foolish. But he remembered every word. On that day, in that room, the old potter had bent over the small bundle and whispered, not in a chanting way, not like a seer, but like a grandfather telling a secret. "Children of gold," Musa had said. "You will not see it yet, but raise them well." John had decided to forget the phrase the same day. He didn't want to live by a riddle. But now, with the house half empty and the village talking, the words came back as if they had been waiting just outside the door. Musa shifted his weight. "I brought something," he said. He held out a small bag of groundnuts and 2 clean baby cloths. "My daughter-in-law sent these. She said to tell you she will stop by this evening." John felt his throat tighten. He reached for the bag with one hand, careful not to shift the baby on his lap. "Thank you," he said. "Please tell her I am grateful." Musa hesitated. "You will take them to the clinic on market day," he said. "Not because they are sick. Because you will need small advice. The nurse knows how to help. Don't sit alone." "I will go," John said. When the potter left, the house felt both bigger and smaller. Bigger because there were fewer things. Smaller because the silence pressed in. John put the girls on the mat and tried to make a plan. He listed what he could do. He could farm. He could wash clothes for people. He could mend torn wrappers by hand. He could carry goods on market day for a small fee. He could fetch water for those who didn't want to walk. He could fix broken chairs with wire and patience. But today he had to keep the babies fed and clean. He had to keep them from rolling into the fire or crawling into danger. He had to cook something he could eat with one hand. He spread a wrapper outside the door and set the twins there. The sun had just come up. The village woke slowly. He heard a pestle here, a bucket there, a rooster that didn't know when to keep quiet. He washed the pot, fetched water, returned, set the pot on 3 stones, and cooked beans. He mashed some for the girls and ate the rest with Gary. He hummed to keep them calm. He didn't know any lullabies, so he hummed the rhythm of work. Fetch, wash, stir, rinse. Around mid-morning, Grace came. She lived 2 compounds away. She wore a bright Kent scarf over a simple dress and carried a basin with soap and a bundle of clothes. Her voice was soft, but she didn't speak like someone afraid of her own words. "I heard you need help," Grace said. "No talk. Put water outside. I will wash. You feed them." "You have your own work," John said. "I have 2 hands," she answered. "Today they will help you." He didn't argue. He brought water. She set to work with quick movements. She washed Margaret's old wrappers, then the baby's cloth. She wrung out each piece with strength in her wrists. "People talk too much," she said after a while. "They say foolish things about girls. A child who helps you drink when you are thirsty. What does it matter if the child is boy or girl?" John didn't answer. He fed one twin, then the other. They took turns sleeping in his arms. Grace watched him tie the cloth the proper way, and when he fumbled she stepped close and fixed the knot without making a show of it. At noon, a woman from the next street, Maman Kechi, came with a plate of yam and pepper stew. "Eat," she said, setting it on the stool. "You look like your bones are working without oil." She looked at the twins and clicked her tongue in a kind way. "Pretty girls. Who says girls are not good? Only goats talk like that." By evening the small compound had seen more visitors than any day in months. Some came to stare, others came to help. Some came with words that sounded like help but cut like blades. "God will provide," one woman said with a sigh so long it felt like a curse. A man with a pot belly stopped by, scratching his chin, and told John to take the twins to an aunt in the next village because men don't know how to do these things. John didn't reply. He didn't hand his daughters to anyone. Night brought a breeze. Grace lit a lamp. "I will stay until they sleep," she said. "Then I will go." "You have done enough," John said. "I cannot pay you." She shrugged. "If I wanted pay, I would go to the market and wash for money. I am here because I want to be here. Eat the last of the stew. I will rock them." He ate. He felt the food climb into the hollow space under his ribs. He watched Grace hold the twins as if she had been holding them all their lives. He looked away because something in his chest made his eyes warm. He took a breath, stood, and stepped outside to the night. The stars were sharp. Somewhere a drum thumped a slow rhythm. When he came back in, Grace was telling a story to the babies. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was plain and small. "Once there was a farmer," she said, "and he had 3 seeds. He planted them and watered them. One seed took 2 days to rise. One seed took 2 weeks. One seed took 2 months. The farmer did not throw out the 3rd seed. He watered all 3. In the end, all 3 gave him food." The twins made small sounds as if they were answering. John leaned on the wall. He thought of the potter's phrase and pushed it out of his mind again. He had no use for riddles. He needed sleep. After Grace left, he lay on the mat near the basket. He didn't sleep deep. He woke at every sigh and turn. He changed them. He held them until his arms ached. He slept at last in the hour before dawn, the kind of sleep that feels like a drop into a well. The next days had a pattern that was not kind, but it was life. John woke early, cooked pap, washed cloth, strapped one baby, then the other. He took small washing jobs from neighbors who were kind and from those who were not. He carried baskets on market day and came home with a little money and 1 or 2 bruises on his shoulder. He planted cassava cuttings on his small plot. He begged only for advice, not for food, but sometimes food came anyway. Beans from one house, plantain from another, a small bag of dried fish from Pastor Daniel's wife. The gossip did not stop. Villagers laughed that he wrapped ankara on his chest like a woman when he tied the babies. They joked that he had become Mema John. They said no man should be seen pounding yam with a baby tied to his back. They said this and then asked him to fix their stools and fetch their water and wash their sheets. He learned to keep his face smooth. He learned to do 3 things at once. He learned the pitch of each twin's cry: hungry, wet, tired, bored. He learned that when both cried at once, he needed to sing even if his voice was rough. He learned that a clean floor is a kindness to small hands that crawl everywhere. He learned you do not need many words to talk to a child. "I am here," he said. "Eat, sleep, laugh, my daughter." On the 5th day after Margaret left, he went to the clinic as Musa suggested. The nurse was a calm woman with short hair and a wrapper with small blue triangles. She checked the baby's weight, pressed her fingers gently on their bellies, and watched their eyes. "They are fine," she said. "Bring them every 2 weeks. Give them pap, mashed beans, breast milk if you can get some. No, you cannot." She didn't laugh at her own joke. "We will teach you how to mix the pap well." He left with a paper folded into his pocket and a small bottle of vitamins. Outside the clinic he ran into the potter again. Musa had come to pick up clay from a man nearby. "How are they?" the old man asked. "Strong," John said. "Good." Musa wiped his hands on his wrapper. You look tired. I am tired, John said. But I am standing. Musa nodded. That is all a man can do sometimes. On market day the village filled with color. Boo-boos and wrappers swayed. Kent cloth glowed in the sun. Anklets jingled as women walked. The smell of fried fish mixed with the smell of dust and palm oil and sweat. People from other places came to buy and sell. Some of them didn't know John's story, so they didn't stare. That made it easier to move. He set up near the water cellars and offered to mend small things. A torn hem, a loose strap, a broken broom. He worked quickly with needle and cord. He had learned to use his mouth to hold a pin while he tied a knot. The twins slept under a shade he made with a kanga tied between two sticks. When one woke, he stopped and fed her. No one complained. Work paused when a child cried. That was the law in the heart, and even Market had to obey. In the afternoon, a man from another village tried to bargain too hard, laughing into John's face. Why should I pay full for this stool leg? Are you the only man who can fix wood? He said. John looked at him and said, Take your money. Take your stool. I will not do it. He turned away. His hands shook. He wiped them on his wrapper and picked up his tools. The man swore and left. Two other customers, women with baskets on their heads, stepped forward and placed their broken items on the mat without haggling. Do it well, one said. I will pay what you say. He did. He didn't overcharge. He never did. He finished, took the coins, and felt a little stronger. That evening, back home, he bathed the twins with water warmed by the sun. He rubbed their arms and legs with shea butter. He whispered their names like a prayer. He had chosen simple names on the day they were born, names that sat well on the tongue, Mary and Mercy. He said each name and then, for no reason he could explain, he said his own name, too, as if to remind himself he existed. When the house was quiet and the babies slept, he sat outside on a low stool. Darkness came quickly. Fireflies showed up and vanished again. Footsteps approached. Grace. I brought palm oil and ground crayfish, she said, holding out a small bag. Use it tomorrow for their pap. It will help. You are kind, he said. You have done so much. Grace smiled. I am not counting. Are you? He shook his head. I am only counting hours of sleep. You will sleep, she said. Not tonight, but you will sleep. They were silent for a while. A breeze moved the leaves. Someone laughed in a nearby compound. A baby cried and then stopped. Grace looked at the door where the twins lay. They are safe, she said. They are safe, he echoed. She rose to go. At the doorway she paused. People say many things, she said. Let them talk. We will talk with our hands. After she left, John went back inside. He checked the babies. He lay on the mat beside them. He didn't pray long prayers. He said, Thank you for today. Give me strength for tomorrow. He closed his eyes. Morning came again. Work repeated. Days stacked like clay pots on a shelf. Some days were steady. Some cracked. On one such morning, when the twins were restless and the beans refused to soften and the neighbor's rooster would not stop crowing, a group of young men passed by the compound and began to chant a cruel song. It rhymed in a stupid way and called him the woman man with two crying girls. They clapped and laughed. John stood in the doorway. He didn't move toward them. He didn't go back inside. He stood and looked at each face. He didn't say a word. People across the road watched. The drummer boy from the shrine watched. The old woman with the bean cakes watched. After a while the young men grew bored. Their song thinned and died. They walked on. The old woman crossed the road and handed John 2 bean cakes wrapped in leaves. Eat, she said. Let fools sing. You, do your work. He took the cakes, broke one in half, and gave the other half back. Share with me, he said. She laughed and took it. Good, she said, chewing. Tomorrow I will bring you pepper. Your stew needs pepper. Late that same day, when the sun leaned low and turned everything a deeper color, Musa the potter returned with a tiny clay charm on a string. He held it up, shy as a boy. For the girls, he said. It is not magic. It is only clay shaped with care. I wrote a small thing on it. Not words. Just a mark. John looked at the charm. The mark was a small circle inside a larger one. What does it mean? He asked. Musa shrugged. It means I made it with love. John tied the charm above the baby's sleeping place where the breeze could move it. He didn't need it to protect them. He liked that it was there. The week ended the way it started, with the twins on the mat, with the pot on the fire, with the village watching and talking, with John's hands busy and his back sore and his heart stubborn. Nothing grand happened. No big rescue came. No miracle. Just work and the next hour and the next. On the 8th night, when the moon was round and bright and even the dust looked silver, John sat beside the basket, the twins asleep, and spoke out loud though no one else was in the room. Mary, Mercy, he said, you will not be mocked in this house. You will be fed. You will be loved. I do not have much. I have time. I have hands. I have breath. That is enough for tonight. He leaned back, and for the first time since Margaret walked away, he slept a full stretch, the kind that knits a man back together. In the morning he woke to two small faces staring at him like the sun had risen inside the house. He laughed. He had not laughed since that day. He lifted them both, one on each arm, kissed each forehead, and said the only promise he could keep, I am here. The years passed slowly for John and his daughters, yet somehow the twins seemed to grow faster than the days themselves. Mary and Mercy learned to walk on the same dusty compound where their mother had walked away. Their first steps were not toward toys or food, but toward the doorway where John often sat mending clothes. He remembered holding out his hands, one for each girl, feeling their tiny fingers grip him like he was their only anchor in the world, which, in truth, he was. By the time they were 5, the village had a name for them, John's girls. It was not always said with kindness. Ah, John's girls, the women at the well would say when the twins approached with a small pot to fetch water. Still growing, still eating, and what do they bring in return? Then they would laugh softly, not caring that the girls understood. John heard these words too, but he had long since stopped answering gossip with anger. Instead, he told Mary and Mercy, people will talk when they see something they don't understand. Let your work speak for you. Work was the one thing John could give them in abundance. When he farmed cassava, the girls were beside him, tying the cuttings in small bundles. When he washed clothes for others, they rinsed the smaller pieces and wrung them out, proud to be trusted. They followed him to the market, where he repaired stools and chairs, learning how to hold tools, how to measure twice before cutting once. It wasn't the life most children wanted, but it was the life that built their hands steady and their eyes sharp. Grace was still a quiet presence in their lives. She visited often, carrying food, clothes, or just herself to help out. Sometimes, when John's work ran late into the night, she would stay until the twins were asleep, telling them stories that mixed real village events with gentle lessons. They loved her, but they also noticed how she looked at their father when he wasn't watching. Mercy asked him about it once. "Does she want to marry you?" she whispered. John only smiled, touched her head, and said, "That is not a question for today." School became the twins' world when they turned 7. Their uniforms were second-hand, with patches on the elbows and hems let out to make them longer. On their first day, some children laughed at the way the fabric didn't match in places. Mary's fists tightened at her sides, but Mercy took her hand and whispered, "We will learn so much they will forget what we are wearing." And they did. Within a year, the twins were at the top of their class, known for quick answers and neat handwriting. The teacher often used their work as examples. But even at school, the shadow of the village's thinking followed them. When exam results came out, a man standing by the school fence muttered to John, "You are wasting your sweat. Girls will marry and forget you." John didn't reply. He only adjusted the twins' school bags and walked them home. When Mary was 10, she asked about their mother for the first time. It was evening, and John was mending a stool under the dim light of a kerosene lamp. "Why did she leave?" Mary asked. John's hands paused over the rope he was tightening. He looked at both girls and chose his words carefully. Sometimes, he said, people do not see the value of what they have until it is gone. She thought she would find a better life somewhere else. Mercy frowned. Did she? John tied the knot on the stool and said, no. At 12, the twins began to help other children with homework, charging a small fee that they gave straight to their father. They never asked for pocket money for sweets or new clothes. Their goal was simple, to ease John's burden. Grace once told them quietly, the way you love your father will be the way the world loves you. By 14, their hard work began to open doors. A regional scholarship program came to the school. The teacher urged them to apply. The form was long, and the questions were many, but the twins filled every page with careful answers. Weeks later, a letter came addressed to Mr. John. He opened it with the twins beside him. The words danced in front of his eyes before he said them out loud. You have been awarded full scholarships to study in the city. The village buzzed with the news. Some people congratulated them, others said it was useless. They will go and get pregnant and come back with nothing, one man said. John ignored it all. He was too busy figuring out how to prepare his girls for a place they had never seen. There was one last thing to settle before they left, the cost of transport and new clothes. The scholarship covered tuition and books, but not the journey or basic needs. John had one thing left of real value, a small piece of land at the edge of the village. He had been saving it as his last safety net, but now, he saw no greater purpose than using it for his daughter's future. When he sold the land, some said he was foolish. Land is life, they told him. Money finishes, land stays. John answered them for once. Children are also life. If I must choose, I choose my children. On the morning they left, Grace came early to help pack. She tied their hair into neat braids, dressed them in fresh anchor skirts and white blouses, and gave each a small beaded bracelet. For luck, she said. She tried to hide her tears but failed. John walked them to the waiting bus. He carried one bag on his head and another in his hand. The driver called for passengers to board. Mary hugged him first, fiercely. I will not waste what you gave me, she said. Mercy followed, her voice shaking. We will make you proud. John couldn't speak for a moment. When he found his voice, he said, I am already proud. Go and learn. Go and live. The bus pulled away, a cloud of dust rising behind it. John stood there long after it had disappeared. The road looked empty, but to him, it carried the weight of 1,000 hopes. He walked back through the village, his steps slow but steady. The compound felt too quiet when he entered. For the first time in years, there was no small voice calling him from the mat, no soft laughter in the corner. He sat alone on the low stool, listening to the evening settle around him. Grace came later with food, but John barely touched it. He was thinking of the city, of the girls navigating strange streets, of the years ahead. He didn't know what would come, only that he had done everything he could to give them a chance. The village settled into its own rhythm again. People stopped talking about the twins after a while. But John never stopped thinking about them. He kept their room exactly as it was, their schoolbooks stacked neatly, their clothes folded. At night, he sometimes sat on their mat, holding one of the beaded bracelets they had left behind, and whispered the same words he had told them years ago, I am here. The compound felt like an empty drum after Mary and Mercy left. The laughter that used to spill from the doorway was gone. John tried to fill the space with work, but even the sound of his tools seemed too loud in the silence. Grace came often, bringing food, conversation, and a kind of company that didn't press too close. Over time, Grace's visits stretched longer. She would help with washing, cook simple meals, and sometimes sit outside with John, talking until the night was deep. One evening, under the soft glow of a lantern, she said the words he had long suspected. John, I don't want to just help you, she began, fingers twisting the edge of her wrapper. I want to be with you, properly. John didn't answer right away. He looked at her, saw the sincerity in her eyes, and thought about the years she had quietly stood by him. Grace, he said slowly, you've been a blessing in this house. If you're sure, then I won't say no. Their relationship was simple, steady. There was no grand celebration, no ceremony. Just a quiet agreement and a shared understanding that life had already tested them enough to know the value of loyalty. Grace didn't try to take the place of Mary and Mercy in the house. She only added her presence where it was needed. In the city, the twins were learning to navigate a different world. They wrote letters when they could, describing their studies, their new friends, and how they were working part-time to support themselves. They didn't send much money at first. Most of it went back into their education and small business ideas they were experimenting with. But John never asked for more. He told them to focus on building their future. Months passed without major changes. Then, one late afternoon, word reached the village like the rustle of dry leaves before rain. Margaret, John's former wife, was back. No one knew exactly when she had returned. Some said she had been seen at the market asking for credit to buy food. Others claimed she was staying in a small hut at the far end of the village, one that belonged to her late uncle. The man she had left with, the one in the fine agbada, was gone. Some whispered he had taken everything from her and left her in a town where she knew no one. When John first heard the news, he didn't react. He was repairing a bench in the shade of the mango tree when Maman Kechi mentioned it casually, as though speaking about the weather. "She doesn't look the same," Maman Kechi said, shaking her head. "Life has washed her down like rain on chalk. No jewel, no jewelry, just one faded wrapper and eyes that don't look straight at anyone." John kept working, his hand steady. "I have no business with her," he said, his voice even. But the village had business with her. People watched her as she walked to the well, her once proud shoulders now bent. Some mocked her openly. "See beauty that thought it would last forever," one woman scoffed. Others, remembering how she had left her children, refused to sell her food unless she paid up front. Grace heard the whispers too. One evening, while cooking okra soup, she said to John, "She will come here. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she will come." John didn't answer. He had already imagined that scene many times. Margaret standing in the doorway where she had once spoken those cutting words. But he didn't know what he would say if it happened. Meanwhile, in the city, the twins were changing in ways no one in the village could see. Their scholarship had opened doors, but it was their determination that pushed them through. They worked after school, sometimes cleaning offices, sometimes selling snacks on campus. Their small business ideas began to take shape, and with each step forward, they built a foundation stronger than anyone had imagined. They didn't tell their father everything. Not about the sleepless nights, the money that ran out before the month ended, or the rejections they faced when trying to grow their venture. Instead, they wrote about the progress. A small loan they managed to repay, a deal with a supplier, a growing list of customers. Back in the village, life moved with the slow rhythm of seasons. Planting gave way to harvest, the rains came and went, and John worked his fields while Grace sold vegetables at the market. Yet beneath that steady surface, change was coming, not in loud footsteps, but like water seeping quietly through the soil. One night, as John and Grace sat outside under a sky heavy with stars, a soft knock came at the gate. Grace stood to open it, and there she was, Margaret. Her eyes darted between them before settling on John. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low. John didn't invite her in. He stayed seated, his elbows on his knees. "Talk here," he replied. Margaret hesitated, then said, I have nowhere else to go." Grace's hand tightened on the edge of her wrapper, but she said nothing. The only sounds were the crickets in the grass and the slow creak of the gate as it moved in the wind. For the first time since she left, Margaret looked small. Not in body, but in spirit. John didn't answer her that night. He simply said, "Come back tomorrow." And she did. The storm was no longer approaching. It had arrived, quietly, like a shadow that had been waiting for the right moment to step into the light. It was a Thursday morning when the village woke to a sound none of them had heard before. The deep purr of two large engines rolling down the dusty road. Children ran ahead, shouting, "Cars! Cars!" Necks craned from doorways. Even the goats stopped mid-chew to look. The first car was jet black, sleek and polished, the kind you only saw in the city or on television. The second was pure white, its chrome details catching the sunlight. Both slowed as they approached John's compound. John was in the backyard, cutting firewood, when he heard the noise. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand and stepped out front, just in time to see the car doors open. Mary stepped out of the black car. Mercy stepped out of the white one. Their Ankara gowns flowed in rich patterns, gold embroidery glinting in the sun. Beaded necklaces rested on their collarbones, and their hair was braided in intricate styles. They looked nothing like the barefoot girls who had left years ago, yet their smiles were the same. "Papa," Mary said softly. For a moment, John couldn't move. He stood frozen, axe still in hand, his eyes scanning their faces as if to make sure they were real. Then he dropped the axe and crossed the distance in long strides, pulling them both into his arms. "I told you I was proud before," he said, his voice shaking. "Now I don't have the words." The villagers gathered quickly, murmuring in awe. Even those who had once mocked John could not hide their curiosity. The twins greeted them politely, but their focus was on their father. Inside the compound, they handed him an envelope. "Papa," Mercy said, "this is for you. You will never have to work again unless you want to." John opened it and saw the figure. Enough money to buy land, build a house, and live without worry for the rest of his life. But more than that, they told him about the businesses they had built together in the city. Import and export, real estate, a chain of boutiques that sold African wear across the country. They were no longer just successful. They were among the wealthiest young women in the region. Before the day ended, the twins had already spoken to the village elders about building a school and a small health center. They also arranged for the market to get proper stalls so women wouldn't have to sell in the mud during rainy season. But the most unexpected moment came in the evening. Margaret appeared at the compound. She was dressed in the same faded wrapper she had worn when she returned to the village months ago. Her hair was covered with a plain scarf, and her hands twisted in front of her as she walked slowly to where the twins were sitting with John. She didn't recognize them at first. She thought they were guests from the city. It was only when she came closer that her eyes narrowed, then widened. Her lips parted. "Mary? Mercy?" The twins stood but did not step forward. Silence stretched between them. Margaret's voice trembled. "I didn't know. I didn't know you would." Her words faded, replaced by a deep, shuddering sigh. She turned to John. "I have nothing," she said, tears filling her eyes. "The man I left with, he took everything. I am sick. I have nowhere to sleep. Please, forgive me." John looked at his daughters. This was not his decision to make. Mary's gaze was steady. "We forgave you the day you left, Mama," she said. "But forgiveness doesn't erase the past." Mercy nodded. "We will help you. We'll rent you a place in town, give you money to start something small. But we can't give you back what you threw away." Margaret's shoulders sank. She nodded slowly, perhaps realizing that mercy was not the same as reconciliation. The villagers, who had once mocked John for raising useless girls, stood in silence, some ashamed, some amazed. Grace, watching from the doorway, had tears in her eyes, not just for the twins' success, but for the man who had refused to give up on them. That night, after the crowd had left and the compound was quiet, John sat with his daughters under the mango tree. The lantern light flickered over their faces. "You have done more than I could have dreamed," he said. "But the greatest wealth you have given me is not money. It is the proof that love and patience can grow something stronger than any hardship." The twins smiled, leaning against him. And in that quiet moment, with the sound of crickets in the grass and the night air warm around them, the man who had been left with nothing realized he had always had everything. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and turn on your notification for more. See you soon.